Hey guys, sorry it's been quite a while since I posted anything. I took the summer off to kind of work on some stuff, but now I'm back and I have just seen the Arc 2 trailer, the reveal trailer, and I'm super stoked about it. And as I was watching it, I obviously had a lot of thoughts about what it was representing. So I figured I'd make a video just putting those out there. It's going to be a stop-start video as I like pause to talk about various different bits and pieces. And it's just going to sort of like go into what's there, what's not there, what that possibly means. So we're just going to go through it and have some fun and we'll watch it together. Okay, let's go. Okay, so first off, that gecko thing is super cute, and I do wonder if there's something about these gems that are on the forehead. Obviously, they're not like attached, like they're not implanted like a survivor's implant, but they are there on most characters. It might just be decoration, but if not, that's interesting, for me at least. So we've got this kid, and then here is Vin Diesel. It's time to go. Being awesomely Vin Diesel, as Vin Diesel is. And these people remind me a lot of like Cro-Magnons, the inhabitants of Europe in the Ice Age, or quite possibly before, but they were a type of Homo sapiens, and they're the ones we're descended from, and it's very funky. I'm loving the costuming, and that looks like an egg in that pouch. I'm not too sure what creature it is. The only blue one I can think of off the top of my head is a Bronto egg, but it doesn't look large enough for that. So I guess time will tell and we'll see. Loving the landscaping. Very cool. And here comes the creatures. Okay. He senses something wrong, and everyone gets ready for war. Looks like an ambush. Right, so these creatures, I just wanted to talk about them a second. So obviously they're sort of bipedal humanoids. They've got like quite pointy teeth. They've got a very bone aesthetic going on. I'm not sure. So here's the thing. So Ark originally, the original Ark project was to create these space stations that would float around the actual planet Earth, and then when Earth became habitable again after the element crisis that got started, they would drop the survivors down, and the survivors would have had all this time to practice and train and get ready for dropping back on the planet. The Genesis simulation was a computer simulation on a seed ship that was sent out into the cosmos, which makes sense. I mean, if you're trying to ensure the survival of humanity, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So it was a computer simulation on a seed ship. Our Genesis 2 is going to be about the actual gameplay on that seed ship, and it got taken out by Rockwell. And there is no reason to suppose that there is only one seed ship. In fact, if I were humanity, I would have hedged my bets because the odds of finding an actual habitable planet around a star are pretty slim. You've got to remember that even though we can find plenty of planets in the Goldilocks zone, Mars, Venus, and Earth are in the Goldilocks zone of our star, and only one of those three is habitable. So well, currently habitable. I have high hopes for the future. So there's that. The reason why I'm not sure whether these guys are Rockwell abominations or aliens, they don't look like the Rockwell abominations we've seen previously, but this humanoid shape is very like mutated human. And the reason why I think they might be Rockwell abominations is they have all these spikes and thorns all over them. Like they've got them on their arms, they've got them on the chest, their back, all that kind of stuff. And even though they look like quite a hostile species, if they're a natural species, they've still got to breed. They've still got to have children. They've still got to touch each other. And touching each other when you're covered in spikes, unless they're massive sadomasochists, which is possible, probably doesn't seem like a great deal of fun. So yeah, so that's why I think they might not be natural aliens. But my other theory about this video is that this is a seed ship that crashed on an alien world or landed on an alien world, and as a result, it has turned out that this world is already inhabited, and now the humans and the dinosaurs that came off the seed ship are like struggling for survival with these guys, which I think is a really interesting plot, and I would love to see. But I'm not sure about it, and that's my big I'm not sure of this video. So we'll see. Love that hairdo, the mohawk on the side of the braid. And Vin Diesel takes off his cloak and gets ready for war, because that's what Vin Diesel does. That's kind of like a chieftain. He's got some additional feathers on the back here. And Vin Diesel's just like, yeah, no, I'm not having it. Vin Diesel kicks ass. If we go into outer space and end up colonising other planets, then I really hope Vin Diesel is part of that, because, you know, he is clearly our best chance for survival, right? I mean, bear arm fighting an alien or possible Rockwell abomination. Okay, now this axe I wanted to talk about here. So most of the tools and weapons we've seen so far have been made out of stone, but this hatchet is made out of what looks like scrap metal. It doesn't look like it's particularly being worked other than sharpening the edges, and it might have been, I don't know, it might just be somebody thought that was a funky design for an axe. But so yeah, so the interesting thing for me here is that it looks like it's a piece of scrap metal from somewhere that's just been attached to a handle, and that kind of goes with the whole this is after the seed ship has landed on the planet and they've basically cannibalized it for parts and to make these kind of primitive tools. But then again, that might not be the case. It might just be that they found like a part of a seed ship of somewhere that they could rip off, and they've made that. But yeah, that doesn't look like the kind of thing you would end up with if you sat down to create an axe by smelting ore and hammering and all the other blacksmithing stuff. That looks more like a found piece of metal that's been repurposed for a different use. And here comes the dinosaur. Nom nom nom. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this dino for a second. Obviously, it's kind of got the profile of a Rex, like that, the short stubby arms and the legs and everything. But it's got all these quills and spines along the back. Obviously, we now know that dinosaurs probably had things that were like feathers, and that actually a lot of our depictions of them are actually incorrect. But it's probably, I would guess, see, I'm not sure whether this is... They've taken the Rex model and updated it based on what we now know scientifically, or whether this is actually some strange hybrid, a different type of dino entirely, or something that has ended up mutating and evolving in this direction as a result of being on a new planet or in the seed ship, whichever one this is. Either way, it's pretty scary. And this is Vin Diesel's big hero moment. Okay. I started playing video games back when they were like little green screen things and there were these outlines, and it wasn't quite the point where video games were just a book that you bought and then you coded it yourself by typing in what was in the book. I was a bit after that, but not by much. And I am constantly amazed at what they can do with modern CGI now. Obviously this is a trailer, but just the CGI on that is amazing. And while I've got it paused on her, actually, I would like to talk briefly about children, because it's not something that gets covered in ARK or the Genesis simulation very much, is the existence of children. So it's really interesting to me that they're actually showing that these people definitely have kids, because I very much doubt that the Genesis simulation would have cloned children as survivors, just because their survival quotient would probably be quite low compared to an adult. So if you want your best bet is to have survivors that prove themselves capable of surviving and then go on and have children. So I think that's what this situation is. And obviously we don't know how many thousands of years in the future this is, because obviously the seed ships would take a very long time to get anywhere. So yeah, we'll see. Ouch. Vin Diesel just casually taking on two aliens with a hatchet. Because Vin Diesel is as Vin Diesel does. That's a legend. And then just, you know, screw you, dinosaur. That's what that was. This woman here, in a couple of, in about 30 seconds or so, she does this move that is completely and utterly amazing, and I'm living for it. And I'll show you when we get to it. It's in the neck. Right, so you've got Vin Diesel coming over and doing this bit, fighting this guy. Bear arming an alien. And then just what she does here now. Ooh, that's just beautiful. Yeah, you made bad choices, my friend. But Vin Diesel lost his axe, which is sad. Yeah, that's right, girl. Be salad. Nom nom nom. Okay, so this is the other interesting bit about the thing I was talking about with the kids earlier. So obviously we now know, because we've seen the implants, that we're not actually in the Genesis simulation, because the Genesis simulation, you don't have an implant, because you're in a computer simulation. But this little girl clearly has an implant, and it's reacting to the technology around her, as you'll see in a second. But if she was a sort of like natural born human, as in the descendant of two of these other survivors, why does she have an implant? Questions without answers. And just that bit there on Vin Diesel's face, I'll see if I can just watch Vin Diesel's face. So he looks confused, right? And that confuses me. Vin Diesel's confusion confuses me. Because you're about to see in a second that he's not actually unfamiliar with this place. So whether this is the first time the implant has lit up or what, but he seems confused by the fact that the implant has lit up, which seems incongruous with what happens in a minute. So we've got the technology, and this is like Earth element technology kind of thing. And then you've got these stones here, these monoliths, and they've got these images of people taming and riding dinosaurs. And I just wanted to talk about these images for a second. I'll give it a sec. There we go. Right. So the reason I wanted to talk about these images, you've got like these Stone Age ones, and then you've got the actual glyphs from the holographic light show that's going on around them. So what's of interesting to me is, first off, this very much looks like HLNA. So it's quite possible that Helena, when she ascended, put herself on all the seed chips and inserted herself into everyone's program. And these over here, like you can see, all of these hands here have implants in them. So all of these survivors presumably have implants. But then this is looks like the ring that goes around the Ark seed ship. So if you've seen the Genesis 2 trailer, you'll see that the seed ship is like quite a narrow long thing, and then it's got this huge ring around it, which I presume is where the vast majority of the action takes place, because it spins for gravity. But then over here, you've got what I think is clearly an obelisk from the original Ark games, right? So like the ones you get floating over the islands. It doesn't look like anything on Genesis, because on Genesis there were no obelisks, right? So that's kind of both the different phases of what humanity tried to do, right? In terms of, A, they tried to do the seed ship approach with the Genesis simulations, and they also tried the space station approach with on the main Ark games, the first Ark games. There's a parasol there, I just noticed. Right, so it seems weird to me that you have both of these images in the same group of people, because if you're on the Genesis simulation, you've been pulled from whatever point in history you're in, cloned, had your personality downloaded into that clone, and then you're playing in the computer system. Same as on the island, you get pulled from whatever area of history. That's why you had Romans, Chinese soldiers, why you had Helena and you had Rockwell, all coexisting at the same time period, despite having come from wildly divergent times. So it seems strange to me, given that this probably happened post 24th century, or at least 24th, 25th-ish century, that you would be able to have both of these images, because it would indicate that someone on board actually knows both sides of the plan and actually understands what the idea was at work. Now, HLNA might have told them, it's true, but it seems unusual to me, slightly incongruous. And I'm looking forward to what these explanations are. When I say slightly incongruous, I don't mean like that as a bad thing. It's I am keen to see what these what mysteries are resolved. So this is a Genesis simulation pod, so you can assume that this cave is part of the Ark ship, and that they have now and that these pods are where the survivors who live out there originally came from. And this bit gets really interesting. So it's doing a bioscan of him, and it identifies him as Costa Santiago. Now, Santiago was a character in Extinction. He was actually playing through and Aberration. Actually, he was one of the people that left Aberration and ended up in Extinction, and sacrificed himself in order to try and defeat one of the bosses. I think it was King Titan or something like that. So here you've got what might be a Santiago clone, because if you can clone people, there's no reason why you would only have one of them, especially if they're shown to be good survivors. But we've got some interesting information about him. So we've got his sex, which is XY, male, his height, weight, blood type, O negative, if you were ever interested. So you've got sort of his vital stats. And then you've got here his haplogroup. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, your haplogroup is the line of humanity that you are descended from. We're all descended from Homo sapiens sapiens, but basically what happens is some bloodlines, let's call them that, end up doing so well that they outbreed everyone else that was around at the time. And there are various different haplogroups going back in history, and they're not all happening at the same time. They go back various different things. So you can trace back through a tree of haplogroups, if that makes sense, back to our original ancestors. And you check it on the maternal line because it's got something to do with the your mitochondrial DNA, which I don't fully understand it, so I'm not going to give a scientific explanation here, but they can do it. It's cool. So this is haplogroup Q, and I will look that up just at the end as to what haplogroup 2 is, and it says Maya there, I think. But all the haplogroups have various different letters that stand for them, and their name, and they're given a name. So there's like haplogroup U, I think, is Eureka, which is quite a lot of Europe, is haplogroup U. And our earliest haplogroup, I think, is haplogroup L, and that was a woman named Lucy that lived in West Africa, I think, a very, very long time ago, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago. And every single human alive on the planet today is descended from haplogroup L. And that's not because she was the only woman that was alive at the time. There were thousands alive at the time. But her bloodline, her children, eventually spread all the way through to the point where it became the dominant haplogroup of humanity. So if we have one common ancestor, every single one of us, it's Lucy in West Africa, some like 40,000 years ago or whatever it was. So yeah, that's really interesting, but I thought I'd explain because not everyone knows what a haplogroup is. But you can get tests for these like Ancestry.com and 123andMe and the various different DNA tests. Actually, Ancestry doesn't do it, but you can get online tests to find out what haplogroup you're in, which is just more of a curiosity than anything. It doesn't have any real impact on your life. It's just if you're interested. So Ancestry Indigenous, without further context, you don't necessarily know what that's indigenous to. It could mean indigenous to Earth, indigenous to the seed ship, indigenous peoples, whatever. Temporal origin was 24th century AD, which we knew already. Regional origin was Sao Paulo. I think we knew that as well. He was a citizen of the Terran Federation, had aptitudes for engineering, strategy, creativity, and fluency in Portuguese, Spanish, and English, which you'd expect from a resident of Sao Paulo. Okay, but here's the interesting thing, and this is why my confusion. So, Vin Diesel walks into place. His thingy lights up, or Santiago, I should probably call him. Thingy lights up. He looks at it in confusion. Right? He gets here. He sees this. He knows how to work the technology, which implies that he's been either here before or somewhere very much like it. Now, it might be that he's like a 45th clone of Santiago, so he doesn't necessarily have access to that memory, but I fairly. I just. I don't know. It seems weird that you would have someone who's confused by the fact that his technology lit up when he came into this place and yet also has clearly already been here. Maybe he just didn't expect it to be running and that's why he says time to say goodnight, old friend, because he then, as you're about to see, shuts off the system. Lights out, old friend. There you go. But why he shut it down, I'm not too certain. Then you get this bit here, you've got some interesting looking flyers. They kind of look a bit like Pteranodons, like the same basic model, but they've got interesting things going on with their wings. And then you've got waterfalls over here. This is very kind of like Crystal Isles, and you've got this big structure in the background, which is curious to me because it implies if this is a planet, you're implying that there's a difference in gravity. And if there was a difference in gravity that would allow that kind of structure, then these people would be able to bounce everywhere. But it's a game, so I'm just ignoring that. But yeah, so it's interesting to me in the fact that this kind of structure exists because this indicates that it's definitely not on Earth, I would say. I would say this is definitely not a prequel to a sequel to what happened to the survivors after the arcs landed on Earth, and we can see that from the fact that the Genesis simulation exists as well. So this is definitely what happened to a seed ship. Now, whether it's the same seed ship that you were on in the Genesis simulation, I think that's kind of unlikely because Genesis Part 2 is coming out, and obviously that's a whole different thing, but it might be. However, it might be a completely different seed ship that's then landed on an alien planet. So it kind of gives me that, again, going back to that, are these aliens Rockwell abominations or are they corrupted avatars, corrupted humans? It's an interesting question. It's not one that's, yeah, and it's not a question that actually gets resolved in this trailer, so not necessarily looking for answers. But I just pause here because there's not really much on here that's out of the ordinary. This is sort of like standard arc stuff we expect to see, but we've got what looks like one large planet in the background and then at least two moons, depending on how far away that one is. Now, this is possibly the kind of view you'd expect on a moon of like a gas giant or something. So it's quite possible they've crash landed on the moon of gas giant. And I think that I'm going to have to go back and watch again at some point the Genesis ending. But this visual is familiar. So it's quite possible that it is the same seed ship and just another forward in time as to what happened following the Genesis expansions. So I'm not too sure about that, but that visual is definitely very familiar, and yeah, it indicates that they either might still be on the ship, which is possible, or that they've actually landed now on one of the moons orbiting this gas giant, and this is where humanity's first colony is, I suppose. So, curious. But don't they look happy? Okay, so that was the Ark 2 trailer. I'm really excited about it. I actually can't wait. I want to have the questions that I've asked in this video answered. And that's what this video was really. It was more questions than anything else, and theories and conjecture and hypothesizing. So I look forward to seeing whether I'm right or wrong or whether I've missed anything terrible. But if you've enjoyed this video at any point, please hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, all that great stuff that really helps the channel out, and drop in the comments your personal theories as to what's going on, because I'm really interested to hear all of them, really. I can't wait to see it, and I want to do a lot of speculating, because speculating is fun for me. So I hope you enjoyed it, and have an absolutely great day wherever you are in the world.